What's up YouTube, capital G. Here we got more Prank Kids support to talk about in this video. 3 spell and trap cards, which is definitely something the archetype needed. 2 of them, in my opinion, look incredibly promising. Some of you guys might have a little bit of Prank Kid fatigue at this point because it seems like I've been talking about the archetype every other day. I promise you this will be the last Prank Kids video for at least a little while, maybe a couple of weeks on this channel. Maybe I'll have some duels, but no more actual discussions and talking about the cards after this. And the main reason I'm kind of focusing on the Prank Kids archetype out of Hidden Summoners is because I feel like it's the deck that has the most promise in this set. I personally believe, and some people might kill me for this, that the Mayakashi archetype looks whack as hell. I think that Nethys looks incredibly cool, but I don't know if it'll actually be that competitive, and it still has a couple of things that they need to fix with that archetype. But let's go ahead and talk about these 3 cards. The first one definitely does something that people were asking for in a card. This is Prank Kids Prank. It's a continuous spell card, so it is searchable by the Prank Kids doodle. The first and the second effects are hard once per turn. The first effect says discard 1 Prank Kids card from your hand. Special summon 1 Prank Kids token. It is Pyro, Fire, level 1, attack 0, and defense 0. But it cannot be tributed. That's really not that relevant unless you're using Link Kuriboh from the graveyard, I guess. Effect number 2. During your end phase, you can target 3 Prank Kids cards in your graveyard except another copy of Prank Kids Prank. Shuffle all 3 into the deck, then draw 1 card. That is the effect that people really wanted in this deck. They wanted some way of recovering because from what I've seen, this deck actually turbos through a whole lot of its resources in its first couple of turns, and you kind of need a way of getting those cards back into your deck, and the deck just didn't have any inherent way. You know, in the OCG, they have Pot of Avarice, but we don't have that in the TCG, so we kind of got to take what we can get. Prank not only gives you the ability to get your resources back into your deck so you don't run out of gas, but at the same time you might be able to potentially draw a hand trap like an Ash Blossom or a Droll and Lockbird, which can stop your opponent during their turn. And then I think the first effect, the token producing effect, I kind of feel like it's going to go under the radar. The reason I like this is because even though it doesn't provide you tangible advantage, like you don't go plus or anything like that, you're basically just trading a card from your hand for a token on field. That token is a Prank Kids monster, so it can be used to summon any of the fusions, any of the Link monsters, with the exception of the Battling Butler. So you can convert that into, Link material or fusion material. It can let you extend your plays, and it doesn't, cost you your normal summon. In addition to that, since this deck has a bunch of monsters that the Link monsters, they allow you to, get cards back from your graveyard, put them in your hand. You can kind of use those monsters once you've already used their floating effects, get them out of your hand, and continue with your Link play. So I think that this is definitely a good card. Then we have the card I'm not so sure of. It's called Operation Prank Kids. Continuous trap card. Both effects are hard once per turn. Effect number 1, during the main phase, you can immediately after this effect resolves, Link summon 1 Prank Kids Link monster using Prank Kids monsters you control as material. Effect number 2, when a monster your opponent controls declares an attack, you can banish this card from the graveyard. That's the cost. Return any number of Prank Kids cards in your graveyard to the deck, and if you do, the attacking monster loses attack until the end of the turn, equal to the number of cards you return times 100. So it does have another recycling effect, but honestly I'd rather just draw a card than have a monster lose 100 attack, especially because this seems so watered down. It seems like a card from like Yu-Gi-Oh! GX or something like that. I mean, even if you return, let's just say a fair amount is like 5 or 6 monsters, okay, so you're getting your resources back into your deck. That's fine, but your opponent's monster only loses 500 attack and it's not even permanent. Like, that's not gonna fucking save you in a duel, to be honest. The first effect lets you Link summon during your opponent's turn, which how many cards actually let you do that? Isn't this one of the first ones that give you that ability? That's cool. The problem is nothing other than Rorgon is going to make like a huge impact. Rorgon is the card that, it has the built-in Feather Duster, and that card is cool, but it is completely matchup dependent. If you have a duel against like Trickstar or Goki, that doesn't really do anything against those decks. Like, those decks are not afraid of spell and trap removal. Now, if you're playing against Gravekeepers, or you're playing against Altar guys, or maybe like Paleozoic, okay, it'll completely destroy them, but the card in itself is completely matchup dependent, and Link summoning during your opponent's turn is just, I don't know, it doesn't really feel like it's going to be all that good in this deck with the Link monsters that we have. So honestly, I probably wouldn't even run this card. If you need recycling, I think that Prank Kids Prank is good enough. Then finally, we have the bona fide 100% staple in the deck. This is a 3 of. It's called Prank Kids House. This is the Rota for the archetype. Another one of the Rota field spells that Konami seems to love making so much. Prankids House is a field spell, and activating it is a hard once per turn. Effect number 1, when this card is activated, you can add one Prankids monster from your deck to your hand. Thank goodness, there's only 3 monsters in the main deck, so we kind of need to be able to get to them. Effect number 2, once per turn, if you fusion summon a Prankids monster, you can have all monsters you control gain 500 attack. That is cool because it doesn't just gain, you don't just gain attack for Prankids monsters, and that attack gain is permanent. That is really nice. Another thing is when you instant fusion out your Prankids rocket, that does count as a fusion summon, and again, all your monsters gain it, not just the Prankids monsters. Effect number 3, if you link summon a Prankids link monster, you can have all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack. Non-targeting, gotta love that. I think that effect number 2 and effect number 3 are probably going to be activated in the same turn. From what I've seen, a lot of times when these Prankid guys kind of go off and they make their turn 1 boards, they're fusion summoning and link summoning during the same turn, and the fact that you gain, or the fact that the 500 attack gain is permanent, is really nice because it means in your first turn, let's just say that you make a totally awesome board, your totally awesome could be potentially 2700 attack. That's incredibly difficult for your opponent to deal with, and then maybe if you activate it again during your turn, that's another 500. I think this was a really solid card design, and I think that Konami has done a really good job with this archetype. At first, I looked at it and I was like, man, I don't really know. I only got 3 main deck monsters. They only float when link summoned or when they're fusion summoned. But when you look at the deck actually work and you see it in motion, it's a very legitimate deck. I think Lithium is right. It's very comparable to something like Ritual Beast. The spells and traps aren't as powerful as the Ritual Beast ones. There's no like Ritual Beast Steeds or Ambush or anything like that. But overall, this looks like a pretty legitimate deck. Maybe like tier 2 or something like that. So whatever you guys think of this new support, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.